Bro, you didn't hit live yet.
Hello and welcome. We are here. It is late. It is Woo Woo Wednesday, but we have Hans, the Dietrich. We have Exotic Propulsion, myself, and through the ether, Julia is with us and should appear.
Somewhere. Did you change up some of your opening scenes? That was amazing.
It actually the exact same video, and I swear it's. I honestly think AI messes with us, and it alters it a little bit each time because I see something different every time.
Scenes?
Since the day Andreas put that whole thing together, it's been consistently good, and there's so much complexity and imagery in that like crazy 5-minute intro. You know, it kind of never gets old.
Mind-blowing.
But your new outro, BurnEye, I love your new outro.
Mindful exposure. Shout out Sarah in the chat. Put that one together. Love it.
Yeah, Astra really, really dominated that one. It looks great, and it perfectly matches your channel's style. I was pretty impressed when I seen it last time.
Just so much great creativity. And today we're going into both the Dropa stones a bit to touch on the parallels of how they're ancient alien artifacts, but that the pictographic symbols and languages on them, and that I believe there's even some actual alchemy symbols used within them. And we're going to go into my understandings of alchemy. And
wow.
It's quite a lot. Quite a lot. But maybe to tie it all together and just out of like left field of the ether, Jeremiah, do you want to just give a brief update of like the pictures of or the like?
Yeah, we should cover that because, and I don't know if it's if it's exactly the right time to do it immediately since people are now just sort of coming in here.
Sacred geometry, and it's showing the Om symbol, the swastika, and the Omega and the Alpha, I believe, right? All within the fields that you've gotten, and it ties this all together of these symbols that are higher dimensional geometries of fractal nature energy and how the universe functions and works, and that you have demonstrated that several of these symbols through your physics experiments, right?
Well, I'm not the only one doing it either, right? So like after I showed this to a whole bunch of people, and that entire day, the lead up to that final call and your live stream where you so graciously hosted out of nowhere my request that BurnEye, let me get on your channel and preach a bunch of garbage about my crazy idea, right? You were the only one there. I knew I couldn't post it on mine. So I appreciated that tremendously. And I suppose I should add to the Omega discovery the other day, since I did make one mistake. And in catching it, it revealed the other 4 symbols. So I feel like it was a reward almost given to me that I didn't deserve out of nowhere by just being open with everybody and talking about this idea that I could have and maybe was wrong about. But here, I'll go ahead and log on from my phone. Let me mute myself out here so that I don't get the crazy echo ring back.
Right, that's always key. And what I have up in the homunculus spot here, the
wow, some fun symbology. Hey.
Right, the main principles of alchemy. There's the 3 principles: sulfur, salt, and mercury. And I've labeled sulfur yellow, mercury red, and that is the positive and negative, the anode and cathode charges going into the electrolysis reaction, your salt. And in the salt jar, there's always this line in the middle, this exclusion zone that forms between the two.
Right. Wow. Interesting.
So I'll get back into that.
All 3 of them. That's fascinating. Yeah.
Let me go ahead and flip that.
There we go.
In the right mode here.
These are...
Okay, so this is what I showed the other day. I only showed this interaction, and it's this one up here. So here we're looking at the side view of 2 different wires that are crossing at a 45-degree angle, as we're seeing from the top down here. So we're just looking at sort of the end post of these 2 individual conductors. These could be carbon nanotubes They could be a variety of different conductors as long as they can carry the transitive electrons. And so there's a possibility of interaction between two different wires carrying an electron on the outer edge as in the evanescent field. So we have we have three different types of electron states that can flow through a wire. The first state that we have is what we would call a conduction electron. This is not necessarily a free electron, but it's simply the transfer between a perfect balance of electrons and protons inside the atoms of the conductors, where we get jumps from one conductor to the next. And these conduction electrons, they can't do this shape. We have a second type of electron in these conductors called a free electron, which can make this shape, but they won't make it unless they're at the outside edge of the conductor. And in the third state, these free electrons, if they are riding in the evanescent wave on the outside, they get to do something that other electrons can't do inside the conductors. Hence why I say this doesn't happen every single time. This is a rare interaction, but it can be caused to happen if we coordinate the exact interaction angles. So the reason for why is if we take an electron, this circle in the center, and we accelerate it along this vector here, we're going to get something called a geometrically amplified relativistic field, which means that these little red arrows here, these are the relativistic field that we'll detect from the electric potential of the electron as it's moving along this vector arrow, and we're viewing it from either this position or this position. Now, if there's an acceleration, we have a slightly larger electric field in the direction of acceleration versus the direction behind it. But what's really important here is from the side, we can see that the blue arrows are the normal electric field of a stationary electron, but the red ones are what happens when it's moving. And we can see that it appears the electron is a greater strength as viewed from the side in this position if it's moving past that point here. And because of these electric fields, it ends up doing something super weird. So let's go back to our first example here. The other day I showed that there was a double omega, and oh, did I freeze? I guess not. Okay, so the other day I showed that there was a double omega, and I said that in this case we get an omega on the top, this shape here, and an omega on the bottom if one was moving away from us and the other was moving towards us. Well, it turns out that actually in that case they would have to both be moving away from us to make the omega symbol on both sides. But this is where I was wrong. If one is moving away from us, like on here, the top side, this red line, this trace represents the electron moving away from us. Right, we're at the cross point there where the two wires cross. If the electron is exactly at the bottom side of the wire, it will be repelled away from the extra electric field, that one right there, because the interaction is orthogonal to the direction of motion. And that extra repulsion can cause it to actually take a loop either through the conductor in a very small fashion, just right at the surface to penetrate the depth and go inside, or to actually take a loop all the way around the outsides. That just happens inside of carbon nanotubes. And on the other side, we can see that the cross section, as we look at it from our angle, produces the alpha. If we look at the cross point between both sides at 45 degrees up and 45 degrees to the side, we see a double infinity. And if we look directly at the top down, we see the swastika. These are the natural symbols of a double sine wave cross path length that these two particles make when they're traveling in the evanescent field. And because of that, we get an unusual interaction. Now, this interaction should allow superconductivity because these will have to accelerate and go almost superluminal. In fact, I believe that they do go superluminal.
Does the blue in that example go behind the tube? Yeah, I see that. Okay.
Yeah, so you can see how the repulsion due to the extra relativistic electric field can cause these types of geometries in these shapes.
So which frequency is this that you're putting in to get these three
DC?
Like DC, and you're getting alpha, omega, the swastika, and the ohm out of this.
Go back and show that again. You're onto something.
Okay.
Please
no, go ahead and tell me what you want me to see, or what you want to see, and what you want me to show, because I have no problem going into this even deeper.
Back out a bit, yeah. So we see the full spectrum.
Oh, the full.
There we go. Yeah,
there it is. Bingo.
So the alpha, the omega.
So you got the double tubular, and if the alpha omega are going through these tubes, they're going to create a similar resonance to these two ultra shapes that we see above the bottom two shapes. So we got these ultra shapes, which are top down and three-dimensional. And so the alpha omega will create that, within the tubular space as a resonance throughout its existence. That's sorry, fucking
It's
brilliant.
wild, right?
Seriously, that's fucking brilliant.
The epiphany
Oh my
came-
god.
Oh, and
Right?
one more symbol I need to show too, and this is important too. I mentioned that I had found the epsilon as well, and here it is. So
Yeah, I know.
in a conduction between two, and this would only happen in carbon. This would happen in carbon nanotubes predominantly, which, by the way, you could make carbon nanotubes as the Egyptians did by burning hemp.
Yep.
And the hemp rope will produce a natural striation of carbon nanotubes. Well, if you have them cross
It
it
will
on
coil when
a
it burns.
you get an
Yeah,
electron
no, exactly.
jump between
Yeah,
one
yeah.
and the next on the outside, and they will make this little shape, this little double loop-de-loop. In jumping from one orthogonal conductor to the other, they can't just take this straight path like this little 90 degrees bend. They actually have to take this double loop in order for the magnetic field and the spin alignment for both particles to come out at the end. And the funny thing is, when they do come out at the end, in this case, in two carbon nanotubes.
Well, I like how you have those going crosswise. Yeah, that's
right. They come out crosswise,
better
and
shape, yeah.
their dipole moments are exactly reversed. So these
Yep.
will form a Cooper pair and act superconductively coming off the carbon.
Wow.
Hence exactly why we found that if we cross two carbon or graphene sheets at an exact angle, that we get superconductive-like properties that were found and not quite understood because the geometry was not yet known. But you could think about the electron run along basically a string, like a bead with a hole through it, and they're going to want to stay along this certain alignment path. Well, it's the fields that control exactly where they go.
Right.
So Dalza pointed out, yes, this is very much like Walter Russell's diagrams. He's seeing this too, and he's seen the interaction. Russell was a genius. Absolutely, he has some of the best elemental diagrams and the breakdowns in terms of how they interact that I've ever seen. And I love the fractal nature of what he's discovered. So I would say that this is a discovery has been known about by the ancients forever, and that's why we've seen these symbols. They may not have...
But these 2 points right
do.
here, where you have the top-down view, but then the three-dimensional side view, I think that's super key because it shows how it overlaps and it folds within itself, and that's wow. Yeah, seriously. Dude.
The part that blew my mind is it's the exact same motion. It's the exact same motion, that nothing changes between any of those different diagrams. It's just that we're looking at it from a different angle. That's all that changes. It's just how we look at it, right? Where we're facing. So it's the frame of reference, the observer, and their position in relation to this cross-field interaction is what determines the geometry that we see come out of it. My mind is still melting from it.
Right, like just from a different angle, different perspective. That from multiple perspectives, multiple angles, you're getting multiple sacred geometric symbols and geometries. It truly is mind blowing.
Thank you for that. I mean, that was like seriously.
Thank you for hearing me. I am
Yeah.
glad that somebody gives a crap about this crazy discovery.
We all do. It's fascinating, and it connects into this theory of everything, right? That so many of us, like in the physics, and connecting essentially the cross between metaphysical and physical, and what the ancients knew, and the real knowledge of the mystery schools, such as these Platonic solids, the harmonic octaves of the spheres, and like the super advanced mathematics, geometric, dimensional knowledge and language that the ancients knew that we're only starting to understand and have come out publicly. But for instance, the twister, the Masonic initiation of the third degree of the twister that was in the APEC presentation last month. It's from every angle. It's fascinating stuff, and it's accelerating.
I'm unfamiliar with the twister. Sorry.
I do love the word that it's accelerating. That's the use of the word in both the figurative and the literal sense.
Oh shit!
Right,
bullshit. Long time no see, man. What's good, guys? Sorry,
Welcome,
Andreas
Gunwoo.
told me to hop in. What's up?
Yo, dude, Gunwoo, haven't seen you in a while, man. How
Right?
have you been feeling?
Oh, welcome to the fold.
Yeah, so what's this about?
The fold is a great term for what we're dealing with. The fold, it's a fold, or it's like a shard, it's a fractal within this higher dimension. of reality, of the universe, of this metaverse, and that it's connecting all of them, and that, like Jeremiah's demonstrated here, the Alpha, the Omega, and the swastika all within DC current.
Now, I do want to point out, too, and this may be important for experimenters to know, that the likelihood that this event will happen in terms of the evanescent wave interaction becomes more and more likely as the impulse speed or the rate change of the current flow rises. And so if you give this Tesla impulses between two cross conductors compared to your continuous steady state DC, the likelihood will go up by orders of magnitude that this effect happens, because when you have a fast impulse traveling down a conductor of any material, it's more likely that the electrons will travel around the outside of the wire instead of moving through it, since that's the most efficient way that they can travel due to the fact that they're repelled from each other and following that geometric field amplification due to relativity. So
you're kind of describing the sun. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, back EMF is a great way to do it. Bedini knew that. You've got a bunch of people that have played around with the back EMF. I mean, it's kind of like the thing that all the free energy guys have talked about for all these years is you have to use this extremely fast impulse, because when you do and you have the right field interactions, you get the emergence of this other phenomena that doesn't otherwise take place for the most part.
Yep.
And they were saying that it would create, the possibility of the conductor actually being warm, but yet when you tried to feel close to it, it would be cold and it would be pulling in temperature from the surrounding ambient. That this is where you gain huge extra voltages, where with only a 3-volt input, you may get as much as a 20,000 volt back EMF impulse out of the same winding with only 20 turns. And so we've seen all these kinds of effects before. And they happen the faster that your impulse speed is, the faster that rise time and that fall time is. This is where the stuff seems to emerge out of. And I think it's just because you have this relativistic kind of interaction.
Were we talking about the Phoenix event?
About the what?
The Phoenix event? Or
No.
What's that?
Free
solar output.
Gotcha. I mean, the Phoenix event is somewhere along the lines. I mean, it's still a coronal discharge.
Sure. Yep, coronal discharge. Yep.
Yeah.
Bring it back into the alchemy, and like you're saying, Hans, that describes the sun. And I was mentioning earlier in Zertis's first stream about my alchemy experiments when making monoatomic gold, and how the alchemists put gold to the sun, and I noticed it would make this regular white monoatomic gold or gold-colored nano gold during the day while the sun is out, and then as soon as the sun set, it would start making this black nano material instead, and that I figured that out, and to test that after first noticing when I was making monoatomic silver and how it correlated to the cycle of the moon, and after testing it countless times now, that basically when the sun or the moon is full, it will produce a bunch of monoatomic silver. When the moon is empty, it won't produce any, and even to the point of a full moon right before an eclipse, it produces a whole bunch of it, and then as the eclipse happens, it stops making any at all in the reaction until the eclipse ends, and it goes back to producing a whole ton of it. It's pretty crazy.
So I can talk about the 5 phases of the sun, but wow, you've just described 5 phases of the moon, which is very interesting. Wow. So I've been to Egypt twice, and I've learned a lot about chematology, and so the chemet scenario is very different from Egyptology. Egyptology came out of Greece. The Greeks understood so much of the hieroglyphs, but they didn't.
Right, it's an appropriation of of Egypt.
Oh, big time! Yeah. There's a usurping of knowledge. The word Egypt comes from Ho Kepta, which was a Greek word that meant the land of Ptah, which Ptah was an ancient Egyptian god that represented life, resurrection, the whole 9 yards. But when they were in Memphis, seeing this placard, it was basically Hepka Ptah, and so it literally means the place where Ptah manifests. So it's a temple. It's like, here, worship Ptah, right? This is where he manifests, or he, she, whatever. And so the Greeks kind of got this wrong, and so this became Egyptos. But the original name for Egypt was Kem, the land of the black alluvial soil. The people that lived there, there was a lot of this that ended up in Kem. And so when the Arabs showed up, they realized Kem was the name for a lot of this, and so this is where we get the words for alchemy, right? Or
yes, sir. And
chemistry also comes from this. So yeah.
Kemet and Alchemist, 100%. That's why in my own
I never put that together.
I spelled my email address ELKHEMIT or IST. Sorry, Alchemist.
Well, there's a whole different story with L, right? Yeah.
Boy, is there ever two. Andreas, my buddy.
I feel so bad that I'm so late for Hans Dietrich. This is like way too big of a show to miss. I'm sorry. Good to see you, Mr. Dietrich.
Thank you.
You made it, sir. And you're here.
Welcome to the fold.
I love that shirt. That's a great shirt.
Thank you. Yeah. Everything I do is kind of
spiraling into the fold, right?
It's so good. Oh, yeah.
I'm giving peace to my Maui friends. I used to live on Maui, so it's
prayers to everybody still having to rebuild, still of course, eternally prayers to all the lives lost in that tragedy that happened.
But it's all right. I heard Obama bought Magnum PI's mansion, and it's doing fine.
All good. No worries.
All good. Yeah. I'm sorry, I got here late. So
meanwhile, let's go back to the fold.
So into the linguistics of alchemy and Egypt. One of my theories of Egypt is like energy gypped. The Egyptian energy stolen, and that it was stolen when they removed the ark out of the pyramid, out of the king's chamber there, when Moses.
We're jumping ahead, man.
Really, man? I very much like this train of thought.
But you're spot on with that. No, you're spot on with that. So the Greeks call it Ho-Kepta, which came from Hepkapata, and then it became Egyptos, and now we know it as Egypt. But the ancient name for this land was Kem. The land
so why not Kemet? So that's the question.
Kemet, same thing. Correct.
So is the T silent though, or because it's interesting?
There's no vowels. It's all Kem.
Yeah. So this is interesting because you've got like the word for the, which you don't usually have to keep by the end of the Middle Ages, but alchemy, and algebra,
This is all the Arabs afterward,
they're studying the Kemet
original, So some of the early languages in Kemet were Suf, the Suf language, and so you find this in where the Dogon tribe is. A lot of them would be considered ancient Kemetians for sure. Yeah.
And the Dogons, they had diagrams scribed on their huts to explain subatomic particle interactions that they have no business knowing about. And when you ask them in a very direct way, where did you learn this? They say the sky people came down and told us.
The Namo, yeah. Not only did they tell them that, but their dances are all their. It's how do I describe it? It's the rotation of the bipolar.
It's the football plays of chemistry. It's amazing.
Well, that too. It's the bipolar solar system of Sirius. It's how it rotates around itself, and that's their like fertility dance in a weird way. So it's wow.
In modernization, like Gurdjieff continues, like the whirling dervishes continue. Like they use a lot of this idea of kind of emulating.
Interesting reference. Thank you.
I just got to look at your viewers right now. Holy cow, people are really interested in this stuff.
Nice.
We've got a lot of viewers going on right now for a super late night, middle of nowhere stream.
Right.
We should be talking about these things. This is amazing.
So you're looking here at these are sigils, right? This is
Yes, sir. I brought some of these sigils up, and
a lot of this
do
comes
they
up
not
with this.
look like advanced circuits? And like it just, I can't.
right. They
help
definitely
but see the
seem more like
parallels.
circuits than anything else. That's true. I see that. What you pulling up here? Oh,
This is the it's a lot of the ancient Solomon sigils, and so
so what do you think of when you think of Solomon sigils? He's talking about computer circuits.
Oh, you're looking at the same stuff right here. This is why I'm blown away. It's like,
do you think that their computer circuits is a good metaphor, or like what's the deal? Why do sigils look like this? Right? What's your
and
thought
so
on that?
what is the sigil doing? It's either calling in or containing or extracting some sort of entity, and that's what all these exactly. This is what all these sigils are.
It's almost
yeah.
It's just funny like how these are considered alchemical sigils because like all throughout like quote unquote pagan witchcraft you have these like Norse pagan fucking symbolism, or especially in Iceland, they still preserve those symbols.
It does kind of make you wonder because again, alchemy. If it's this is the symbols of the study of Kemet, right? These are the Kemet. So in other words, if they're reappearing elsewhere, does that mean? I mean, there's one way you could say, okay, we're all tapping into something. The other is that there's interaction. You know, like you've got the same kinds of boats in the Nordic, Scandinavian areas that you have in Eritrea and parts of Kemet, and you have the same kinds of symbols. Then it stands to reason that they're connected from interaction.
Correct. So weird, kind of off topic, but on topic. Do you know about the Oetzi? Do you know about the Oetzi mummy that was found in the French Alps?
The Oetzi mummy. I just
Briefly be refreshed.
asked if I meant autistic mummy, and I'm pretty sure I did not.
No. He's called Oetzi.
O-T-Z-I? Okay.
Oetzi. O-T-S-I maybe?
Here, no, Z. Here, I pulled it up for a sec. If you want, you can pull the screen up. I got it there. This is this guy?
Yes, correct.
Interesting.
Okay.
Oh,
so
the Alpine.
This guy was hunted and shot crossing over the Alps.
Wow.
But he has tattoos on his body.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That are of what do we want to call them? Like Qigong points.
Right. And they're on specific acupressure points.
Correct.
So it's like they're not just cosmetic. Yeah.
How in the hell is this guy existing in the French Alps when he was found based on his carbon dating with these markings on his body?
Yeah, that's way before Carl Jung. He was so jealous.
Wait, what do you mean?
He definitely liked to have the marks.
But seriously, Oetzi is an interesting character, and it's like, wait a second, what's going on here?
Yeah, I'm looking at these tattoos for the first time. I knew there was tattoos on it, but I didn't know about the acupuncture.
They're not. They're all like
boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
Holy
and they're all done with. So they used what was it, like crushed beer? They used crushed rock and ash, right? It was charcoal and something red, some kind of red stone that they crushed, and so they're injecting it.
Lasted so long is amazing.
Well, I mean, it's not just ink. I mean, this is like the Voynich manuscript. It's really
good reference. Thank you. Wow, amazing.
Well, written using kind of the materials, right? Like all the paints in the manuscript are alchemical. Yeah. Well, sorry. Go out. You're thinking of it. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I've just always thought, oh my God, here we have all these, acupressure, acupoint points, on a body in the middle of France that predates any of this in this region. It's like, were we more connected than we should have been?
Well, it's also funny thinking about like the last 30, 40 years of like hipsters, because you've got tattoo culture and it is really cosmetic. I mean, you've got Irish people going to moon gatherings that come back drunk and they're like, what did I do? There's a dude with a hot dog next to Baphomet on my back. I mean, and so you've got blood rituals. I've seen like tattoo cover-up videos. I don't like tattoos nearly as much as I love tattoo cover-up videos. Watching someone come in there being like my wife, my fiance, my my family. They won't let me back in the house until I get rid of this tattoo. I find a lot of pleasure in that. I'm sorry, but like the blood ritual part matters, right? Because you more and more they're starting to recognize, like they're like, oh, I should be careful if I, they're discovering Occidental philosophy. Like I should be careful what blood ritual tattoo artist I have. If I get a tattoo artist, I'm going to be tied to that. New Agers
don't
even
want
know this
someone
now.
tattooing a demon portal into you.
Yeah, maybe don't inscribe your curses onto your own body. Seems like a pretty stupid idea.
Dude, I want to put like men's room, but in Chinese.
On your ass. Men's room.
In Chinese. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. Like tattoo culture kind of blows my mind because it literally became celebrated by media. Like Limp Bizkit, like every day we got a new tattoo. And so there's a whole generation of people that are just covered in sigils.
I would draw stuff on myself, and my friends at school, at art school, were like, dude, we're going down to the studio tonight. We're going to put that on here. Like, no.
Right. Yeah. It's way cooler to have Facebook updates than tattoos. I'd rather change I want those like temporaries all the time. Why isn't that more common with adults? Temporary tattoos, little sun on my face. That'd be cool. I'm sorry. But the Voynich manuscript, they actually made the inks out of like alchemical processes. Like these are using minerals, using emerald and things like that. And so
oils the essence out of it, right?
But we still don't know what any of it means, and that's the most amazing part of the Voynich,
right? The lost higher languages.
Is there anybody doing AI on that? I feel like there's got to be, right? There's got to be somebody who's using AI to figure out.
I've wanted to forever. I've suggested it many times. That's the next episode. We got to do with Thomas, Paranoid American. We'll get into it. Maybe Charlie. He's got the linguistic model of Chat GPT-4. But yeah, it just blows my mind how advanced like the knowledge goes into these alchemy symbols, and that it seems like these geometries, the shapes, the energies of it all, the direction of it, it's more than just this ritual. It's actual the power behind it, I guess, and creation.
It's starting to look a lot more like many of these symbols, and maybe not all of them, because these have come through history and they've been adapted, right? But I would bet you that many of these in their early stages, in the beginnings, were physical representations of the motion that must take place in order to have a certain type of event or a transmutation or field interaction.
Yeah, a lot of these things are brushed in sand.
You have center top the icon symbol of feminism right there, or feminine, right? It's the circle with the cross.
Yeah,
right here. Yeah,
this directly comes from literally
St. Christopher. Sorry,
no, the Ankh. Okay, seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, to say it crudely, you could say you've got a plug and a jug, and are they two opposite symbols?
The fallopian tubes and the ovaries and the vaginal canal. It's
you got to put the plug in the jug. Close the circuit, and then you have life.
Life, exactly.
Real quick, I don't think we might not be that far off from being able to interpret the Voynich manuscript, because as soon as I looked at one of the pages, it reminded me of the Georgian script.
Oh wow, look at those.
It's like a halfway between like Georgian and like Galgothic.
Kind of. Wow, interesting.
If anybody here is, and I'm guessing actually most people here are probably familiar with the Electric Universe thing. 3/4 of those symbols on that page right there are plasma effects as viewed from the side, and they turn on a very large scale in the upper atmosphere.
Go back to that.
Yeah.
Oh,
these are like fractal ray antennas as well. Like it's.
Yeah, this is what I was mentioning earlier.
All of them,
in the private chat, that the Icelandic magical staves. This is
a lot of what you see in this book as well.
Yeah, this imagery appears all like they're all throughout Norse, Slavic countries, and especially Iceland, because they're one of the most prominent witchcraft nations in the world that actually preserve that culture.
Are you talking about the ice mage thing that you said?
No, the Icelandic magical staves, the one we're looking at right now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because this only exists due to the preservation efforts of Icelandic people, because the Christians were trying to get rid of this entirely.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because these symbols have very specific uses. Like these are natural laws, and like to kill an enemy's cattle, right?
Right. And I also put in the super chat the Galgothic script and the Georgian script. If you compare two of those with the Voynich manuscript, they look very familiar, very similar.
The Georgian script looks like little piggy faces. I think it's adorable, but I don't know if I'd really say that the Voynich manuscript reminds me. I think that the Voynich manuscript, also Galgothic, is like 13th century Croatian fabricated using all sorts of symbols. So I think the best thing to do would be
Galgothic's fabricated.
Well, I mean, it's synthesized. It's made by priests.
That one, yeah.
I wanted to look at that one too and talk about the Sumerian symbology too, because the Sumerian culture almost 12,000 years ago, the fact that they said everything that they learned about agriculture, architecture,
right,
structural design was taught to them by visitors again that came down from the sky is just wild, and it permeates their entire culture. It wasn't like one report, but we have over 130,000 artifacts from Sumeria containing these marks, and they say it all comes from above.
Have you heard of the Magna Fuente bowl?
Yes, in is it Peru or Bolivia?
Bolivia,
Bolivia, and it actually came out of a pyramid.
There's also a stele that has exactly.
Yeah, here we go. And but there's actually hundreds, if not thousands, of the artifacts now out of the adjacent pyramids that have all of this Sumerian writing inscribed into it, and that it's modern. Right, it's the modern day. Oh goodness gracious, the Egyptian, Roman.
Shit, what is it called? Damn it!
Right, always happens in the live. You said it a million times, and then you can't think of it at the time. It had Egyptian, like Sumerian and Roman or something.
Oh, oh gosh, right. Yeah, you're talking about in Ecuador, the Valley of the Giants, Ecuador, Egypt.
No.
We're talking about Egypt. The Rosetta Stone. I finally thought of it, right?
Oh gosh, really?
That's what it's called, right? So the Magna Fuente bowl.
Is a Rosetta Stone.
Yeah,
it can do
South American.
It has two different forms of Phoenician cuneiform, and it's found in the middle of nowhere in Bolivia.
Wow.
This dude was feeding his pigs out of this thing. It was amazing.
It's pretty funny how Bolivia became the middle of nowhere, considering Titicaca was quite the place at some point.
Oh, wait, you guys know about the Cuevas de Science?
I don't know where is that.
I mean, the Voynich manuscript, I just want to say, it's interesting because in 2018, they published this whole idea like, AI didn't decrypt it, but that was 2018. Do you have any idea how long ago 2018 was? Like, I don't think...
Has anybody, like...
None of us were born yet.
Deciphered.
Actually, I think I heard something 2 or 4 months ago saying that AI had like deciphered it or something, but then like never found the article or heard of it since.
And I'm glad you brought up the Sumerian text found in like the South America, because it's just Father Crespi.
That's right.
I go through the all the time. Right, even got right here over top of us. This is from the Crespi collection, the Golden Tablets, and look at that pictographic language. It just mind blowing. And
those are some golden plates right there,
right? I was just about to say.
There's a temple.
Is that actually them? I mean, that's not like
this is one of
there's a temple in Egypt.
It says Moroni right on it.
Hold that there.
I did not realize that these golden tablets I've been told about for years, but never seen a single image of looked as beautiful as they do.
The Mormon Church have been hiding them, bro. You're not ready.
There's a temple in Egypt that has this on the ceiling of it. And
the same inscriptions.
Called the Temple of Maya, and Maya in ancient Chem or Sufi language means water. And so you have this depiction of this guy wearing a weird headdress in Elephantine Island, and there's a spot outside of Saqqara. You go into the temple site. Man, you got to pay these people mad money to get into these ancient sites, but they'll take you in. And you're like, oh, what do I see? I'm just seeing the same, hieroglyphs on the wall. And the guy will go, and he'll, shine his light on the ceiling. And what you just showed me on that gold seal is what you see on the ceiling.
Really? These right here.
Correct.
You see this?
I'll find it in my photos and I'll post this. It's mind-blowing.
amazing.
And my friend Stephen Mailer, who wrote this book here, The Land of Osiris, fucking brilliant book.
Show the book one more time,
Oh,
Hans.
sorry. Land of Osiris, fucking brilliant book, Stephen Mailer. That's kind of why I got into his whole idea of chematology. I've worked with Stephen. I've worked with Patricia Iwan and Yusuf Iwan. Yusuf is his son. Sadat, his son. Rabah, also daughter. She does a lot of magical work with gemstones. And yeah, I've known his family for years and blown away. If you ever seen the Pyramid Code...
Yes, I have.
Okay,
I'm glad you bring this up.
Hakim is in the Pyramid Code, and yeah, he's the guy that is the ancient wisdom keeper, and he brilliant teacher for sure. Anyway,
so you've learned from them and studying them, or you're writing a paper on their knowledge and research.
No, I learned from them. I met Patricia,
Amazing.
Yusuf, and Stephen Mailer in 2014 in Peru, and so we all had an interesting, all new experience in Peru trying to find ancient chem. And you go into the Larca Limo Gold Museum, you go into the basement, and you find 3 sculptures that have chest plates and these headdresses. And the headdresses are straight out of Egypt. It's unbelievable. They're the headdress of Amun. They have like 2 finger spaces that go up across, the top of the...
Yeah, there's other depictions of that in the Crespi collection as well, what you're describing.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, did ancient Egypt end up in South America? Well, all right, I'm going to burst everybody's bubble here. So I lived in Hawaii, and I lived on the island of Maui. And Maui is known as a god or a unifier of the ancient world that stretched from New Zealand through, all these areas in the Southern Pacific to Easter Island, all the way up to Hawaii and even to Alaska. Okay, there's similarities in Alaska. There's an amazing documentary series about this. Okay, so Maui is an interesting character. He's considered a Polynesian, but he actually isn't. He's a 2000 BC year old admiral of the sea that was a Cometian or an Egyptian for that matter. His name was Maui, and he unified all of what he conquered, going literally down through the Red Sea into the Indian Ocean and out, and colonized all these lands. His name was Maui. And God, what is the name of the series? Indians in the Cupboard, something like this. It's a 3-part series about the history of New Zealand, and it's mind-blowing. I was blown away when I learned this. So Maui is not...
Yeah, it's Hawaii Loa, right? Hawaii
Yeah.
Loa is supposed to be Maui or something like that.
Yeah.
And again, we're fooling around with vowels too much here. But like,
Correct.
if you get to what you're saying is really interesting, because we have this idea today of who people are, where they're from, and everything. And we gotta remember, people were very nomadic. Nations and tribes were very nomadic, so they moved their government.
We all were.
When they,
oh my God.
well, like you move
sure.
your government when you move. You have to move. You can't have the internet, so you have to move the whole government.
You don't have the internet. Well, of course.
I mean, there's certain kinds of solutions to this, but for the most part, if you move your government, then your problem is solved. But this confuses us later. It's like, wait, how could this city be here and how could it be there? Or why are these people, like, why are Westboro Baptist Christian? How did that happen, right? How do we get to Westboro Baptist? I'm not saying they are, but how do we get to the point where they exist? Because if you go back, they're so far removed that if you were to like go to the time of Jesus and introduce one, they'd be like, they have no connection. There's so many steps apart. The thing that comes up for me when we talk about the Mormons talk about the Jews going to the Americas, but they also talk about Akhenaten, and Akhenaten being Moses. So if you're looking at the Egyptians being the place where they're coming from, then immediately you have the exact same narrative. You have that North Egypt culture that's emerging. And what do they say happens? Well, 40 years in the desert is like losing yourself, right? So 40 years are generations in Native America. You will lose, your culture will dissipate. You'll interact with other cultures. You will lose aspects of your culture. Royals will marry other royals. Natives won't. And so like DNA will be confused as well. New people will be converted to believing in this when they conquer new lands. And then they'll believe they're the people when the original people die out. I mean, it seems like there's enough evidence to say.
So that was the common consensus back in the 16th century, 16th, 17th century when the Europeans were arriving to the New World, quote unquote, right? So the whole Tartars as Israelites theory.
Yeah,
like back then, Christian monks, it was already unanimous agreement that the Scythians were the original Israelites, and they just and they sailed to Americas specifically to look for these lost Israelites to convert them back to Christianity, under the assumption that due to all this removal of culture and the reset, whatever, that they were going to be animists or pagans, and they completely lost.
But this is also
the cultural roots. Yeah, go ahead.
This is why on the maps, like when you look at Tartary,
go back to the Grand Canyon. That was interesting image. Sorry, interesting.
Like very temple, like right, the temple pyramid rock.
Oh, we have to do a full episode on how.
I've seen this, but I've never really seen this. So.
But it's interesting because the idea that
also this was a giant hole that they went in and covered up in the 50s, claiming or 60s, claiming a plane accident. And no,
plane blew in the
Grand. For the first time in history, a plane crashing into something created a brick wall. Like it just
America. Well, okay. If you have these temples, right, and we're talking about people that believe that they have magic, that they can perform these like super tech future like circuits, like this is magic, but it's science and technology. So they need a fab location, they need a factory, they need a temple. Almost all these pyramids, they're light in the center. It's power in the center of an edifice.
Well, that's what a pyramid is. Fire in the middle, right?
It really is a factory more than it's like a tomb, So if they lose their temple, that's a big thing for these people, right? If they lose their temple, then they have to use tabernacles. And what do you see when you look at Tartary maps? You see these pictures of tabernacles because that's their form of government.
Have you been into an ancient church in Europe?
Yeah. So
you have the most amazing glass dome or glass stained glass windows, right? You have the vibration of the tabernacle or the whoever's cathedral in the middle, and then you're walking around the labyrinth at the center. And so
right.
It looks like a resonator.
Yeah, exactly. You're in this,
and they preserve the climatic tones in the windows, so you know which tones to play. Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to mention, Hans mentioned New Zealand. So I recently came across a documentary called The Redheads, where like there's this tribal matriarch in New Zealand who's Maori, but through DNA test was confirmed to have Persian DNA.
Azerbaijan and
right, exactly, dude. It's absolutely insane, and yet people completely deny that. Like the anthropologists in modern academia.
The Maoris only existed 800 years ago, but we have 2,000 years of lineage. What's going on there? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, thank you for looking that up.
I was just thinking also like the Ponturi and the Moriwari, right? Because like the legends of the Mori are like that there were a redheaded pygmy people that were very short and that they ate them.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
I mean, that's a genesis. That's a genesis for people. Yeah. Also, the British only arrived after the Maori like 2 centuries to 6 centuries max, right? So it's they were really close to each other at arriving when the Maori got there too, it changes our idea of their history.
Yeah, I don't really buy any modern day, like anything from like 200 to 300 years old. I kind of take with the grain of salt.
I agree.
It really is these days. It's
what do you?
I know this might not be relevant to lost histories of the world, but I just wanted to chime in and say hello, Gunwoo. I see you rocking the pink with no fear, and I respect it.
Right?
Yeah.
I think he fought hard enough for this country that he can wear pink. I think that's not how that works, I think. Like John Wayne did that, right?
Hey, let's just say he makes it look good.
He does, yeah.
Thank
And he
you.
sounds really good too. Obviously, the audio on whatever the heck those pink headphones are, it's coming through really clear. So can't discredit it.
Yeah, no, these are just gaming headphones, bro, from Razer.
Hans, in terms of like cultural transmutations, you know, so like we're talking about how these cultures have shifted and disguised themselves and lost themselves. What do you do you think about the Sarsif, Akhenaten, Moses thing? Do you think that there's any logic to that Moses was Akhenaten?
So the Rosicrucians get into this big time. So I just a little bit of my background. I grew up in Kathmandu, Nepal for half my life.
Nice.
So I've been in this whole region, and I started getting into these other ideas like early on. So 2014, I went to Peru. 2016, I went to Egypt. 2018, I went to Egypt again. And so you go into the museum and you see this statue of Akhenaten with the huge elongated skull, and he looks all bulbous and weird, and you're like, what is this all about? And yeah, wow, Akhenaten's an interesting one. He changed the religion for multi-netters. Netters were what we would call natures, so similar to Hindu and South American religions, everything was related to natures. So these were the netters. But prior to him, we had these houses and the suns. And so there were 5 phases of the sun. The first phase would be Kepher. So you're pushing the dung beetles, pushing the dung up onto the horizon. And so this is Horus on the horizon. Then you have Ra, right? Okay, Ra is the fierce rays of the sun. It's around noontime. Everybody considers, ancient Egypt was all about Ra. And it's like, no, they actually had multiple phases of the sun. So then after Ra is Un. Un is like, mid-afternoon. It's not the adolescent. It's more of a mature phase of the sun. And then you have Aten. And Aten is the enlightened one, or the ultimate phase of the sun before you go into Amun. And Amun, or Amen, however we pronounce it, becomes the hidden. And so I love to quote movies, Luke Skywalker. So Luke Skywalker is Lucius, right? And so he's the sun on the horizon. And through the course of his transition, he becomes the Skywalker. And he becomes gray, and he meets his father on the horizon. And he battles Darth Vader, his dark father, through the darkness, where both of them become the sun again. He becomes the sun he needs to become, and Darth Vader becomes an illuminated being. And so it's like, oh my God, this is right here in ancient Cometian, philosophy, ancient Buddhist philosophy. It's kind of the same. It's very interesting.
Right, yeah. I mean, because it's a completely universal belief until you get to them.
Right, not to mention George Lucas himself said the story of Star Wars he wrote like completely based off of ancient texts and whatever lore.
There was a Ramayana in his dorm.
Yeah.
But to see that keep unfolding even through the movies that we all hate, the new series.
I just want to compliment that you explained that incredibly well, and I've not heard anybody else put it together quite like that. And I do find it fascinating that this story, as old as history, can be told again and again 1,000 times over, and it's never going to get old. I think it's ingrained into us epigenetically. It's like something that we just simply fundamentally relate to, and when you make it into media, or you do sort of a hero's journey or a different story and tell about these same principles, it doesn't matter how you say it.
Joseph Campbell. We've got to give Joseph Campbell massive credit for this.
Well, there's also
he invented the hero with a thousand faces, and that's literally every tarot card. All this stuff comes from that. It's like you start as the jester or the fool, right? And then you go through your transformation to become the king or the queen, depending on what path you're following. And
But so that's the thing. You look, I mean, I've been seeing this more and more. You look into Buddhism and Hindu, specifically Vedic Hinduism, and like the Quechua Native American religious reincarnation. Even though, yeah, looking at like Kabbalah, like Gilgul reincarnation, there's forms of reincarnation. So all of them seem to be more, and like you said, this idea of multiple natures. There's a lot of that existing until you get to Moses. And this Moses path is really antithetical to the rest of the natural law systems, because the natural law systems are consequential. If you do this, this happens. And this other thing is like, do what I say or I'll kill you. In fact, kill your kid, or maybe you won't. Like this crazy, angry, jealous God thing. It's freaking weird. So much so that the Christians couldn't even accept that it was the same God at first, right? They're like thinking it's a second God, like Marcion. Right. So what is the deal here? I mean, like, if you got a Stockholm syndrome cargo cult in the desert that creates this evil guy, what's the deal?
Well, so before Akhenaten was he was known as the renegade. The only other person that we've known as the renegade was, Joe Obama. He was called the renegade. I mean, all these people had names based on Akhenaten's reign, which is really weird. Akhenaten was a weird king, so he was into the fierce rays of the sun. He wanted a one all-time, ability to control one aspect of the sun versus all five, which I described. Again, prior to this, I'm not trying to get into Akhenaten's reign. We'll get into that in a minute, because he's said to have stolen the Ark of the Covenant, and if you look at the dimensions of it, it would fit into the box in the king's chamber. And so, yeah, it makes sense that this might have been a technological device. Just saying it. But
if it touches you, don't you get electrocuted to death? Like, that's what
I've been in there twice, and you're in the king's chamber and you're toning to E, but you get in the box and you're toning to F, and it's like, whoa, weird. I mean, it's like a whole different frequency of the box.
I'm like, I never put those two together. Like, so the Benben stone being the antenna, and then the Ark being the resonator. Holy shit! Wow. So it is really like what, a nuclear power plant, right?
I mean, people say that they've gotten radiation poisoning from being
right. And not only that, people have found the chemical residue.
Buy this book, read it.
For sure, I will, man.
Yeah, no, seriously. Christopher Dunn is onto something with the Giza power plant. And if you look at other sites that are found around the space, but the second time I went to Egypt, I avoided the Queen's Chamber, and the second they opened, because you're on a private tour, so you're allowed to go into all three chambers: King Chamber, Queen's Chamber, and then the basement, basically, what I call it, the subterranean passage. And I've been to the Queen's Chamber. There was nothing there that was exciting to me. And so the second they opened everything up after I was there the second time, I bolted down to the subterranean passage. And I went down the dead-end shaft, which I don't think is a dead-end shaft, but we'll get that in a second.
I also suspect that it is not.
And we covered this too.
It's cemented at the back, and there's a drill hole through it. So,
wait, Jeremiah, what did you say?
All right. So we covered the whole toning thing inside of the three pyramids on the Giza Plateau, and inside the Great Pyramid, this most wonderful harmonic of toning that you can generate inside the Grand Gallery is a Bragg resonator. It's a Bragg reflector, and it produces these multiple tones from a single input, and you get the whole frequency of your primary trifecta of harmonics that sing back to you as if you've got a whole chorus. The whole thing is amazing, and I can't believe you got a chance to go there and experience that for yourself.
So that's what I'm saying. Going into the dead-end shaft and sitting at the end of that, pitch black, you're under the earth, you feel your own body, your body vibrating like crazy. You're like,
holy shit.
It shakes your chest in a way that's so visceral that you feel it almost at your soul.
I should
resonate.
But you sit there, and I had at least 5 minutes to myself where I could tone and do my own thing before people started coming down.
I wonder what would happen if
once you have 2 hours in the pyramid if you're on one of these tours, And like seriously, after like 30 minutes, they start opening all the shafts, and I'm like, everybody's gonna stay in the king's chamber and the queen's chamber. I'm going to the basement, and oh my god, the channeling down there is so amazing. You have no idea.
I would love to ohm down there, and I plan on doing
Right, I
it
was just
one
gonna
day.
say, what would happen if you started throat singing in that area?
I did. No, I did.
Really? Hell yeah!
I do dual channel when I do toning, and so it's funny. Oh, hey Julia, you made it! Awesome. Anyway, when I do channeling, the first time I was in the Great Pyramid in 2016, we had a blood sacrifice, a wedding, and
what?
Blood sacrifice?
all of this is totally illegal. The blood sacrifice wasn't intentional. This guy. So if you're coming up the Grand Gallery, all right, you get to the upper chamber, and it's like 4 or 5 feet tall. It's not very
So
tall.
you're kind of joking when you say blood
No,
sacrifice?
he got Peter. I like to call that getting Peter toshed. I know where
Yeah,
he's going.
you have to duck down, go through, and then there's a chamber in the middle of it that you step up to, right? And you don't know it's there. And so you're like, shh, oh, and all of a sudden you're at the other wall. And so this guy hit his head hard and he bled. It was sad. And so he's ending up in the
But ordained by the celestial
chamber. He's
spirit.
bleeding. I'm like, oh, we got a blood sacrifice.
Okay, you didn't actually
gotcha,
die.
gotcha.
There we
Okay.
go.
Then my
You don't have
friends
to
got-
die with a blood
Oh,
sacrifice.
but my friends
You've
got
been doing
married.
it wrong.
Blood ritual. I see sacrifice. I think you're sacrificing someone's life.
Yeah,
No, just
Yes,
a bit of
blood.
No,
So
you
yeah,
just
you just
It's
did a
totally
little blood.
different.
It
Dripped his
sounded
blood into the
accidental,
chamber.
so the
Blood
intention
offering.
was there.
Healed in blood. I can respect
blood
that.
offering.
Tell him. Wait,
That's
did you
cool.
tell him how you smoked weed down there?
What?
And how it
Don't get poor. He's gonna
Anyway.
get thrown. No, that never happened. Like, don't give
So-
authorities reason.
Paging the Mossad.
Then my friends got married.
Glasses
This
down.
couple from New Zealand, they got married in the king's chamber,
Oh.
which is totally illegal. You can't have religious ceremonies. It's a Muslim like temple.
Yeah.
Oh.
The guy was like,
That's
oh
so
god, he
cool.
was like doing the head plant.
The
And
thing
then,
they did-
Oh wow, really? He had to like turn his
Oh,
head
yeah,
while you
oh,
did
yeah.
it? Oh, that's so
then
brutal.
we did Om chanting, and we were trying to resonate the room. And he put his hand into the box, and he was blown away. He was like, "Oh my god, I feel it." Yeah,
But
And
the
so
thing
it
I
was-
wanted-
super amazing. Anyway, that's why I say I've done it all in the Great Pyramid.
But like your vibe is
That's
it's not.
epic.
Do you think that there were dead people? I mean, at some point they probably moved a couple bodies in there, right? But like for the most part, it wasn't a tomb; it was a
It was
factory.
never a tomb. Never. Yeah.
I mean, I would have put someone in there eventually, like, or somebody would have got killed in there. I can see how dead people would have happened at some point in a factory.
At some point,
Dangerous in a factory.
I'm sure they did bury people in there, but it was not originally.
Not intention. Agreed.
not
Yeah.
intentionally.
The thing I wanted to ask Hans is like I don't know if you're familiar with flamenco at all, but just like the stuff that people like the Tartaria community says, especially Ewing, about like how like ancient Egyptian like artifacts like the pyramids or whatnot were all fake or built by European colonizers during the whole biblical archaeology era. So like, are you familiar with that at all, or?
I've heard every theory. I have books on my shelf. Yeah.
Julia, I think I could hear your keyboard.
Oh, sorry.
Because there's a lot of photo evidence of like French and British expeditionaries hiring people in the local area to build certain things or like relocate temples. We have all these construction photos. Just wondering like how does this line
There is
up?
that primarily. There's two aspects of that. Okay, so the Germans came into Egypt and they found a lot of these sites buried under massive amounts of mud flood or desert or whatever we want to call it. Okay.
Sand, seas.
So you go to Luxor, all right? Luxor was buried under the sand, and they built a Muslim temple on top of it before they realized it was even there.
Right.
Clever.
So the Muslim temple is still on top of Luxor, but the rest of the temple is below it. and it's mind blowing. Okay, so there's a lot
And
of
the amount that's below the whole Giza plateau is just nuts. Like supposedly the whole is it Aswan pyramid and the 3-storied
more than 3.
yeah, right. And RIP to
So-
did the pyramid code from Calgary. The
Yeah, her
one-
name was shit.
Every time.
every time it will come to me, but
Well, how much
Amazing.
excavation could they actually do underneath the what's it called, the Al-Hagag or whatever?
They're not allowed
Al-Hagag.
to do any, but if you her name is Carmen Bolter.
Oh, nice.
yes,
That was good.
Carmen
I tried
Bolter.
to distract you when you
She
got
worked
that
with
one.
my father in the anthropology department at the University of Calgary. Okay, anyway.
Amazing.
Small world. She died sadly during COVID. We won't
Oh,
get into it.
Damn.
If you ever watch Dark Journalist, she's been interviewed on Dark Journalist a few times. So Carmen did the pyramid codes, and she interviewed Hakim. And Hakim claims, and I've seen part of this, Hakim claims that there are 10 layers of tunnels. So that would be 20 layers because you got to have space in between all of them, basically, that are the size of semi-cars, all right, or semi-trucks, the back part, right, that go from the Giza Plateau 18 to 50 kilometers into the western or eastern desert. And these are 10 layers deep. And this is never talked about until they discovered the Osirian shaft. And they realized, oh my God, here's a bunch of tunnels that go to nowhere. And we don't.
Well, the Edgar Casey Foundation was able to get authorization from
Correct.
Zahi and do their own excavations and go deep and where people have never been able to go before. But they prayed for Zahi's college, correct?
Yeah, but Zahi wouldn't admit to any of this. And he's like, oh, no, this exists, but we've studied all of it.
Dude, look at the north entrance to the mosque, man. Like, this is crazy. Like, oh, yeah, I just walk.
Oh, this is
on
the
through
Luxor?
here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the Abu
So this-
Hagag. Yeah.
This is above the ancient structure.
And clearly just barely, because like some of it's sticking out. This is iceberging really hard right
Yeah,
now.
correct.
This is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just make
That's
ourselves
just
at home.
So there's a lot of this that goes on. You go to the Serapeum and you have 24 alcoves that are all northwest, southeast aligned. Okay,
This makes me think of the catacombs.
they're all 10 foot deep, and you have this black basalt like scenario going on in each of them, and they're all perfectly aligned. And you're like, how the fuck did they build these or move them into this?
But they're built a lot of the
None
time.
of
You
the
got stuff built right on top.
have any smut, so they haven't burned any torches in there. It's just
Right.
like
No carbon scoring. Right.
none. It's mind blowing.
But you've got, so then what you have then is an Etch-a-Sketch, because you got certain areas here where if you built a tunnel, like all of a sudden you can have an esoteric cult right underneath your floor. I mean, there's a whole place ready to go.
Look up the Serapeum. You'll be blown away.
Look at the
And
what?
they have many in the side halls that were just left in situ, and you're like, you could barely squeeze 2 people around the side of them.
Can you say it again? The Serapeum, or what is it?
Serapeum. Serapeum.
Serapeum. Okay, there you go. Temple.
Yeah, bingo.
All right.
Yeah, go into this spot, and you'll be man.
Ooh, yeah, this looks like places I went this summer. Actually, where's this at? Greece?
It's in Dendera, Saqqara, yeah, in Egypt. You're way past this. Go back.
This guy hill, right?
No, keep going back. Yep.
Oh, okay, hold on.
It was the first one you went
This
to.
guy here. This isn't it.
One more. Yeah.
Well, that was the wiki page for it. So, where this thing here?
Yeah, that
Just
catacombs.
these
Yeah.
guys. Okay, yeah. So this is just carved out. Wow.
There's no smudge marks on the ceiling, walls. How the fuck do they do this? If you're drilling in this kind of an area, the amount of silt coming out of your drill is gonna kill you within 2 years. So again, how are they doing this? I don't know if there's any other photos of Serapeum. You should, find more. Yeah, here we go. All right, so each one of these, there's 24 of them, are sunken down like 4 or 5 feet from the main tunnel.
Bruh.
Right? And like there's no way for that. They don't even fit through the doors.
Arthur C. Clarke is going on here.
What you see here on the left is artificial. That's been added since.
Okay.
But these are sunken down
5
feet from the main chamber, and they're all perfectly aligned.
So you're telling me this wood floor is an original? All right.
No, of course.
But other than that,
it's a black basalt, correct? Or red granite, black
crazy
basalt.
This is this one. I've been inside of this one. All right.
Okay, this one here.
This is the one you can go inside of.
Not Photoshop?
The inside of it is perfect. I don't know how to describe it.
What is this? Is this an altar? Is this a kid's play chest?
All of this hieroglyphic on the outside is fucking bullshit. It's all.
They claim that they're for bulls.
Years and years and
bulls'
years.
tombs. Yet there's single one piece precision cut 90-degree angle on the inside, right? Completely hollowed out.
Okay, but
are they saying feet long? It's just they're nuts. It's
but you're saying, are they saying that this? Okay, what are they saying? Are they saying this is a Mithra cult? Like, what are they saying? What is it supposed to be?
So our thought in chematology is this is where they would store seeds. This is a seed.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So this is Yuya's fault. Okay. Yuya's vault. All right. You know about Yuya? Right before Akhenaten, right? Like the story of Joseph and the plagues and famines.
Right.
And so you've got Yuya is actually a real historical character.
Look at how much space is there, and then how much you're creating a.
It's
a chamber, yeah.
This is interesting to me because, so right before Akhenaten, when you got Yuya, and you have in the Ptahhotep divine maxims, it says, "I will not divert water," right? So I won't stop water, and then they divert water in that period for the Nile towards the Giza plateau. So when that happens, there's a major famine, which is pretty similar, at least, and probably is the biblical famine.
Anyway.
Wait, so why would they put a seed vault instead of pyramid if the pyramid was supposed to be like a
pyramid and those granite things, all of it's electroculture, magnaculture.
Right, yeah.
So there's 2 of these in the hallway that you can barely squeeze by, and you're like, how in the fuck were they moving these things? I mean,
right? They don't even fit
that one's
through
not
the
the
doors.
one. There are 2 in the hallway that you've got to ask yourself, how is this even possible? How are they moving these things? Yeah. I mean, look at the size of those.
It's huge.
So the top is one piece, the bottom's one piece, and
they're both from the same piece of stone. So they
demons, bro. Solomon's magic. That's what Solomon's seals are for. That's what this is. I don't know.
Maybe interesting you say that for sure.
Well, it's interesting just thinking about. Okay, so if Yuya does where is that Yuya? If Yuya does this thing where they have a famine, essentially because they divert the flood, and they predicted it because they did it, they caused it. So they have all the grains in a seed vault. Then they're able to buy up all of the land around the pharaoh and put themselves in a powerful position that the pharaoh wasn't even in before this flood, right? Before this, the Nile was diverted. So I mean, I'm seeing this as like a pretty real.
Holy shit! So you're telling me catastrophe bait? So
we need to talk real quick about the pharaoh.
Okay.
Well, I was going to mention. So you're telling me like the orchestrated catastrophes and real estate acquisition.
I'll be back. Hold on a sec.
That fucking Ponzi scheme has been around since the age of time. Wow, that's hilarious. Because much like we're seeing now, like with real estate, with BlackRock, swallowing up mortgage houses. So this playbook has been around since ancient Egypt. That's fucking crazy.
Egypt had a thing where we have 4 seasons. Egypt had 3 seasons.
Yeah.
So they have because there's 4 seasons in Ethiopia. Because in the mountains of Ethiopia, the waters flow down with the end of winter into spring. So for Egypt, you just have summer, you have dry, and then you've got wet season.
Flood.
It's just like all of a sudden the water's everywhere. And so when the water comes, you divert some of the land that you've got to flood,
Right.
and then you grow rice paddies in it, right? Like rice paddies look like you could also grow. That's not what I want. How about papyrus?
P-A-D-D-Y.
Oh,
or
okay.
D-D-I.
Oh, this is even weirder. I don't know what the heck even happened here.
Just
I'm
look up
done.
rice paddies, man.
I'm all right. Here's the deal. You grow something in the soil, the saturated water.
Rice
soil.
Wait a second.
We're talking about Egypt's 3 seasons. You got a flood season. When the flood season comes, then they soak up the land, and then the land can grow, and then they harvest it. And then the next flood comes from Ethiopia through the Nile. So there's 3 seasons, right? But if you cut that off, then all of a sudden, all these people that are just using the land that's near the water that they're actually like harvesting from, that can't happen. So they have to trade in their cattle for grain, and then eventually they're literally just serfs, because like, look, all right, you don't own anything, just keep using your cattle, keep using the land, but it will be ours, and you'll just pay a tax on it. And that's how the pharaoh, as a kingdom or family, ends up in control of everything, because everyone has a social contract where they admit that they need to give them everything they have in order to get the food.
So I'm gonna blow your mind.
All right, let's do it. I'm
All right.
excited. You're already blowing my mind, so thank you.
So there were never any male pharaohs.
Oh yeah, right. Cleopatra, is that the kind of point she wore the fake beard?
No. The Cleopatra that we know of today was the 7th Cleopatra. So
All right.
okay. So the word pharaoh comes from the word per-ah. Okay, there were 5 pers. Actually, there are many more, but there are 5 main pers. Okay. So you have per-ka. So the ka is your body. So the per-ka is basically the tomb. Okay. This is not the pyramid. This is a tomb. You have per-ba. Ba is your spirit. In the ancient Cometian or Egyptian form, it was your head on the body of a bird, right? So this was your spirit that traveled into the astral world. So that's per-ba. Per-ba is the temple, right? So you're worshiping the spirit. Then you have per-neter. Per-neter is the house of nature. Per is always house, okay? So the house of nature is the pyramid. Well, this isn't a tomb. That's the per-ka. It's the house of nature. So there's energy. There's something of energy there. Okay. Then you have per-wer. And per-wer is the house of wisdom. Or Osiris is a Greek name, but his Cometian or Suf or ancient Cometian name was per-wer or per-wizard. Okay. Usir was Osiris. And this is where the Greeks got the word Osiris from. But then you have the ultimate house, which is per-ah, the house of the woman, the house of the high house. And so there was no pharaoh because the pharaoh was per-ah, and the Greeks totally misconstrued this. And
Right. So pharaoh's not like a person, like a king. It's like it's the house itself. It's a feminine
house itself. And
right,
so
yeah.
it was a matriarchy. And we always are told they're smart when they tell us the history. Oh, in the time of Pharaoh, there was king so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. Recently, they've started saying there was Pharaoh so-and-so. But no, they always say there's king so-and-so. And they're smart saying that because they realize that the house was the high house of the woman. And talking with Timothy Hogan, like he's one of the top-notch not only Freemasons, but Knights of Malta representation. He's like, yeah, they would never have initiated a king without the house of Isis, the high house of the woman, sitting over that. And so the kings ruled the people and the land, and the women ruled the fertility and the land. And so when you look at the old sculptures in Egypt, you always see the woman with her arm around the husband, right? And it's super fascinating. It's like men
are disposable.
No,
they're soldiers. You send out men to be soldiers, and women have to stay home.
It was a unity. It was a full-on unity.
Well, okay, I don't know, because the idea that men were equal kings when like really you can have soldier kings, but women were in charge of the court system because under Ma'at there's this idea of the victim being the judge.
Yeah. Okay.
So like the idea of the femininity is like it's essential, but this is also interesting and revealing because we're telling, you know, I mean, this is a weird question, but hear me out. What's the wrong interpretation of this, right? Because the wrong interpretation matters too. What they're saying is that the pyramid is a place of death. That's important because if they're saying the pharaoh is replacing the pyramid, it might be talking about the priesthood or the house itself usurping power. And this is how you end up with Moses replacing the pharaoh, essentially, because you've got them moving and taking the priesthood of Asarsef and all of these people out, the Semitic priests out of Egypt. They're removing
I would say that's happening at the same time that they stopped the functioning, like working of the pyramid power that was in it and removed the ark out of it. And
moving past what I was talking about, yeah, BurnEye's correct on this. So it's like, oh my God, you have this technological device that has. If you look at the box and its dimensions, it's the same dimensions as what they would say the Ark of the Covenant was. And so was Akhenaten Moses? Good question.
Right?
Was
the King's Chamber?
Fourth? Yeah, correct.
Right, well, the King's Chamber and the Ark of the Covenant have the exact same measurements, like whatever the boxes that remains in the center of the King's Chamber literally fits the exact same dimensions of the Ark of the Covenant.
So, but who became the Temple of Death then? The Pharaoh, because you're saying par of life, it was the pyramid. So if it's now become the place of death because it
was per netter, it was the house of nature, and so
who was the house of death before?
Well, that would have been completely different. I mean,
that's what I mean. Like somebody probably stole it. I think that sounds what it happened. You've got someone
per ka or per ba. So you have the house of the temple, or you have the house of the worship, right? Or the tomb of the worship. So
the tomb of the worship.
No, or either or. So per ka would be the tomb, and per ba would be the worship, right? So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it could be whomever was in charge of the per ba. The per ba took over the per nature, or what per ow, I think you said.
Per netter, per netter, yeah.
That'd be interesting because it would explain a lot about like the.
But that's what the Greeks saw. So they saw father to son, and so they showed up. I was saying this earlier. They showed up at Memphis, and they saw this. You know, Mabasta. Oh my God! Or what does this say? Well, it says ho kepta, right? Okay, so this is the Greek, but to the ancient, Cometians, this was hepkapata, and so instead of being ho kepta, right, which the Greeks heard was the place of Ptah, the manifestation of Ptah. To the ancient Cometians, it was the manifestation of where Ptah landed. Okay, and so it was a temple. It wasn't the whole land, but the Greeks saw it as the whole land.
Like they were in charge, yeah.
Yeah, and so they saw, this is the land of Ptah, the original, Zep Tepi, the original, creator of Egypt, and so that's what they saw, and so that became Hepka-Ptah, Hyptos, Egyptos, and Egypt eventually. Right?
So that actually makes it almost not horrible because the idea of if it's Ptah, you could associate with Ptah Hotep, and so the idea of Ptah Hotep,
correct?
Ptah Hotep's land is actually a pretty decent name for Kemet. Actually,
well, that's where it was. Otherwise, it was Bu-Wizir, and that was the other name for it, or especially around Giza. So Bu-Wizir is the land of Wizir, which is Osiris, right?
It's interesting because you've got Coptic cults, you've got Mary Magdalene cults, you've got goddess worshipping cults, like all these things that are existing. Not sophists in the Hellenism.
What are your thoughts on Scotland?
Well, yeah. What do you think of that? The Sinclair thing, or how far do you go? I don't know if you meant that Da Vinci Code, but
Scotia.
Yeah.
So Scotia was Maritatin.
Yeah, I believe the bagpipes.
Akhenaten's daughter.
The bagpipes come from from Egypt, and in the plaid tartan. The plaid tartan is patterns that we find in Botswana,
So this is how I found out.
Wow, you're on it, man. I love
the
it.
bagpipe stuff is how I found out about the Phrygian migrations. How like the Druids were originally Phrygian and stuff like that. Like how people attribute like Phrygian accomplishments as Phoenician, right? But like if you follow the migration of bagpipes from Anatolia originally, which is how it ended up in Egypt, and then eventually the Rishat structure area, then the fucking Azores, then eventually Scotland and Ireland. But yeah, like also like I want
that's an interesting idea that the bagpipes originated. You think in Anatolia before
this
Egypt?
is also you know how like Egyptians were originally Persians. You know, that word comes up as well.
What do you think about that?
That's
Everyone
the
was
house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The original house, original motherland. You know.
Yeah.
There's a spot, interestingly, in tennis on the wall that if you look at it, it says Peru or Peru. Sorry, not Peru, Peru. So it's a box with many houses inside of it, and then there's 4 waves underneath of it. And so if you were to translate that into whatever, it means from the land of tennis or Tawis, you would go across 4 waters to reach the land of Peru, the land of many houses. And so what are the 4 waters? You have the Nile, the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, and the
Hans, didn't you say
Amazon, yeah.
Didn't you say that Maui, you tied it back to Egypt, that it was Egyptian?
Yeah, so I talked about this earlier before you came on, but
no
worries. So I grew up. I didn't grow up. Sorry, I lived in Hawaii for 2.5 years. Loved it. I lived on Maui, and I learned a lot about Maui. And he's this god of the sea that unified literally every Polynesian island from New Zealand all the way through to Easter Island, to Hawaii, to Alaska. And if you watch, there's a 3-part series that's brilliant. Why am I brain farting it right now? Skeletons in the Closet, something like this. It's all about the Maori culture of New Zealand, and a majority of them come from Azerbaijan and Iran, like 2,000-3,000 years ago. And it's interesting because most of the Western culture is like, oh, the Maori culture didn't exist past 800 years ago. And they're like, oh my God, are you kidding me? We have 800 years of cultural voice, from way back. Right?
And living elsewhere. Exactly. Nomadic tribes.
Seriously. And so they started looking into this, and then they're like connecting this character, Maori, who unified New Zealand, Tonga, all of Polynesia, into Easter Island, to Hawaii, all the way up to Alaska, because there's so many similarities with Alaska and Hawaii. It's unbelievable. People don't realize it, but it's there. And, back before the cataclysm, that would have all been one mountain range that went through the Ring of Fire. But what's interesting is this character Maui, his name is Maui, and he was an Egyptian admiral of the sea, and he went to Australia and he went to New Zealand, and he unified all these cultural groups, and he existed about 2000 BC for the king of that time. His name was Maui, and this is mind-blowing that this is huge. They know this in New Zealand culture. They know he was an Egyptian, but most of the Polynesian culture does not. And so it's fascinating.
Man, I'm so glad you mentioned this, because I'm about to explode right now with the amount of information that I got on this stuff. Because last stream, with Andreas, I was talking about the origins of the Ainu, right? How it found like a Persian connection through the Austronesians in Taiwan, and the Persians whatever, settled in Yunnan, the province of Yunnan in China. Yunnan being the Turkish word for Greece, Yunnanistan, and then eventually you reach Taiwan, and then the Ryukyu Kingdom and like the Indonesian area, which is how you have like Austronese Aborigines in Australia and New Guinea and all that other stuff, and then tie into then migrate to Peru, becoming the Chapachoya culture and all that other stuff, and the Pueblos Tayos. Man, I'm so glad you tying this all for me.
And then I believe there's like the Gofford glyphs or something like that in Australia, the Egyptian sites in there as well.
I've known two friends of mine, Yusuf Ayawan went there, and Muhammad Ibrahim, and they both translated it. It's like very primitive Egyptian glyph. It's not super, high end, but it tells the story of two brothers that came there to trade. They left in a storm. The storm capsized their ship. One of the brothers died. So this spot became a memorial for the brothers. And they basically talk about how the trade was good, so on and so forth. And it's just like, oh, the Egyptians never left Egypt. And it's just like, are you fucking kidding me? So,
right. But it's more into Scotland, right? Because the more you think about that, there's so many levels. Because earlier you were asking about Scotland and Scotia,
really,
like Valentinian.
I think everyone was everywhere.
Well, this is what I think of Atlantis, and we get into a lot of what Julia's doing as well with these serums and these things. It's like we knew all this before, and I think we're coming back around to all this again. And are we living the time of Atlantis again? That's the question, right?
I mean, but then you have that theory of civilization being a cyclical,
cycling back into a new golden age potentially, and that Hans, you were talking about the ages of the sun in ancient Egypt, and it brings me back to how are we transitioning again into this new age, this new cycle. That whether it's
these are the Yuga cycles. These are it all overlaps. It's like micro, macro, or massive, right? Yeah. Interesting you say that, because here we are. It's like, are we coming into the age of Aquarius? Well, if you really look at the time cycle, it will be for another 200 years.
So I think I go with there's this. Lots of people now stating the sun is white compared to where it used to be yellow, and that the work of Nassim Haramein, he made this claim, I believe before 2012, it was 2011, that in 2001 was the first time the sun didn't do its 11-year magnetic pole flip, and then in 2012 again it didn't do its magnetic pole flip in the 11-year cycle, and instead it's done this pulsing and it seems like it's growing a little bit and doesn't do this flip, and then so now another 11 years is 2023. So supposedly if it doesn't do a magnetic pole flip again this year, I guess it would kind of scientifically verify that we're going into a different age of a sun, because
I don't think we have enough information on that. I mean, quite honestly, we've only been studying the sun for the last 100 some odd years, and so it's like, do we really know what it's doing?
I mean, you got Jesuits and Chinese studying it before, but is the sun the same sun? Even, I mean, you got a lot of people on YouTube saying all kinds of things, but some of the stories about what are we even seeing in the sky at this point? Like, do we have any accuracy of like what we're even experiencing? I mean, earlier Gunwu brought up time, right? The idea of the flamenco chronology. Do we agree that the Gregorian calendar is right, or do we prefer the Julian Orthodox calendar? Because there's like 1,000 years of discrepancies between the two, right? What do we decide on things like that?
Are any of you having premonitions, or?
I've always had the 3-day of darkness thing, right? And so I used to have dreams as a kid that there'd be like 3 days of darkness that would come. And everyone's just yelling and arguing in the streets. Like, I was just imagining like Ninja Turtles city. Like, I mean, again, I was little starting these dreams, but they kind of stopped happening around 2012. I remember right around 2012, I had this dream that was like in a white freaking like 2001 chair of a room, this egg room. And in the room, there was like, I'm not really in the room. Like I'm watching them and they don't see me, but there's all these people dressed in white around this table. And they're all like, it's like Hillary Clinton and stuff kind of people. And they're talking about how they can't go back before 2012. They're like, no, we can't do it anymore. And I'm starting to understand what they're talking about in this dream. They're like, yeah, like, I mean, are you sure we can do this? Like, can we even, like, we've caused a lot of trouble in the past. And it's like, no, we're sure. Like, this is the best. We've got it back to about what we can. Like World War II this is what we're going to have to live with. And no one can travel before this date. And it's set. We know that. And so we're going to just lock it at December 21st, 2012. It's kind of, and that's kind of what it was like in this dream. And after that, it was like this, I kind of felt like, okay, this clarified for me some sort of reality shift, and that there still probably is something to come, who knows, but that we're in this thing now. I don't know.
What are your thoughts on your pineal gland affecting like DMT or Amrita or any of these aspects affecting your dream state? What is
I was doing a lot of Kundalini. My Shakti had definitely been activated. So I think that definitely had a lot to play into my experiences, I think a lot of people do live routines designed to keep them from dreaming or being able to experience their dreams on purpose. Like maybe they don't know it, but like there are certain things people do in order to keep it suppressed,
This is interesting for me because like from a young age I used to be clairvoyant. I would just have like random dreams of like just events that would happen in the future, very mundane dreams. But then like over time, like I just stopped dreaming at all. I'm just wondering like what happened.
You smoke a lot of weed?
I mean, yeah.
There's a lot of majestic things that I think affect your ability to remember your dreams. You're probably still dreaming, but you can't remember them. But like honestly, almost every time you tell someone to sober up, and then they start having dreams. I think that's a big one.
What are your thoughts on this, Julia?
Oh gosh, I preach it all the time. I feel like a broken record. It's like cleanse, purify, cleanse,
right?
And the profound things that happen. But even just meditating, I recommend like waiting 15, like it takes like 15-20 minutes, and you let like all the thoughts that come like a river, like where they come down and you let them pass. And then the true meditation and deep insight comes about the 20-minute marker, and that's when it really starts. And and then practicing that and accessing that and asking questions and directing that and receiving the answers in a way that you will be able to absorb it. But I preach that a lot of the purifying, and not like, to me, there's certain substances affect the clarity of that. But yeah, like go, try to go as like eat as clean as you can and live as clean as you can.
What is the best way to get into one of these states? Yeah. Eat clean.
I think there's like different kinds of so this is something I'm thinking about a lot recently, is that there's different goals for different people. And you've got, this is again the consequentialism, because you go into Hinduism, like, well, which god do I serve? It's like, well, what are you trying to do? And that seems so confusing. But it's like, are you trying to understand and become part of the expression of creativity, creation? Are you trying to embrace like Jagat? Are you trying to get Shakti? There's a reason why a lot of people are into tantric Shakti yoga. It's kind of an embracing of the Holy Spirit, and yeah, bro. But I mean, there's also like Sanatana, which is like eternal. And so I think there's like steps. You have to empower the self. You have to use Atman, and there's a lot of people that would call that Luciferianism, but I think it's like an early step towards then understanding the Shakti, which is like how to use the Holy Spirit. But then what's the point? Like if you're not doing it for the eternal, if it's not like for Narayana, like the sort of eternal, the thing in between destruction and creation, I mean, then you're not really doing it for like surrendering to like the purpose or something that's come before you, is coming after you. I don't know. That's my thought.
Bring up Narayana. That's interesting.
What's your thought? What do you?
That's true. Yeah. Interesting.
I've been thinking about Narayana because it's like it's this dharmic alternative to the Abrahamic Yahweh.
Correct. Interesting. Okay. All right. Wow. Shit.
What?
Oh,
Sorry.
welcome back, Bernie. How are you?
I've been listening to it, and I also find myself when I smoke a lot of weed, I don't remember my dreams, and that when I was younger, I had reoccurring dreams actually of a past or future life on Mars a whole lot, and that I don't get them anymore with the amount that I smoke weed. But
You're suppressing it. Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
But then when I do smoke marijuana, and like I'll get into like a kind of like meditative conscious state where I kind of like zone into these weird alchemical science ideas and like experiments and stuff. It's quite strange.
Do you have a like cosmic drip or a pineal expression that comes out of that? Curious, just as we keep going back into this Soma and
Amrita.
yeah. I'm curious about that. Yeah.
I wonder if also the
has anybody done sound healing? Curious, yeah.
No, I haven't.
Oh
I'm
my
all
God.
about
like
sound
the
healing and
experience
binaural
of that.
entrainment. Yeah, I think it's really key.
I think it's key.
I know about the wave oscillators, like how the 1800s chairs, the wave oscillators they had back in the day, where they were like just coronal discharge to heal you. There's a company in China that's actually reviving that technology, and my aunt owns one.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What's it called? Sorry.
It's
Let me write this down.
let me like I don't know the actual. I need to ask my aunt again about what the company name is. God,
Yeah,
it's
no,
fucking-
I'd be very interested to find out that.
Yeah, I mean we'll definitely keep in touch.
And
Let me.
this is perfect and exactly what I'm trying to get to the bottom with in the Science of Sound series that we're doing, and being able to use the right frequencies and resonance to figure out how to heal and what the actual solfeggios do, as well as the Kirlian frequency. There's so much to it.
It's called a multi-wave oscillator.
All right, I'll write this down.
And it uses coronal discharges to heal people, and this has been around since the 1890s, 1880s, somewhere there. And there's a Chinese company, like I mentioned, that's reviving this technology, probably off of Shenzhen. I need to ask my aunt.
No worries. Thank you.
Yeah.
Super fascinating. Anyway, Bernie, you were talking about this waveform technology. So there's a spot in Egypt next to the Unas pyramid, in between Unas pyramid and the step pyramid. It's called the hospital. And so what people would do in the ancient times, what I've been told, is they would lay on the tablet or the projection table, and the doctor or the facilitator would go up into the upper area, and there's two alcoves, one on each side. And he would put his head into one alcove and create a tone, and that tone would then resonate with the person sitting on the table, and he would be able to see, like an MRI, what's going on in the physical body. And he could go to both the right and left channel of the body.
I heard they would do that while they laid on a salt bed when they did that.
No, exactly. And this I've heard this several times going to the spot. They call it the hospital, and it's like now it's all open air, but in the back days it had a shaft or a temple structure over top of it. But it's between the Unas pyramid and the step pyramid. It's like the most amazing space. And seeing some of these sites in both Peru and even Egypt, it's just like, oh my God, what the fuck? It's like there's so many of these magical sites that are what
we're starting to see
what is going on here, you know? Just
well, it's just about remembering in what tone and to play certain sounds in what order, you know, and that unlocks things and accesses things and does things. We just need to remember the tones.
And so the tones get into the drip technology. Here we are talking about
the sacred geometry, the different chants and throat singings, and
what do you mean by the drip technology? What is that?
Would you like to step in, Julia?
I mean, I'm from Silicon Valley. I'm afraid of becoming a blood boy, but tell me about the drip. I want to know. I want to know.
Amrita and Soma, yeah.
So yeah, do you think it's just from breathing
Yeah,
exercises and achieving like bhakti?
no.
Or
No.
Like, what are you talking about?
So even Jay Widener's talking recently about melatonin, and so we secrete this from our pineal gland. I mean, it's not so much my research. That's why I'm like, Julia, step in.
Oh, the cerebral spinal fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cerebral spinal fluid and how it's one molecule different than seawater, and how it actually bathes, like it emits light and vibration, and how it bathes the pineal, and how it spins similarly to DNA style and the heart flow, and the three, with the two individual axes that spin around the third one, but that it's like this crystalline tech that's inside of us and our spinal fluid. And then when it reaches the pineal and that whole process, that there's way to access it and amplify it to where you reach these higher state of consciousness that they say the soul swims in the CSF, like that it's inside of us. Randolph Stone, the inventor of polarity therapy, he said the soul resides in it. And the
So
fact
you're
that
essentially also explaining why these saltwater isolation bathrooms work too, because you're becoming still oneness with that, and then the crystal salt water you're in with is then exponentially amplifying you.
You're talking like radium baths or something like this? Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot. You've never heard of these the isolation saltwater isolation tanks or whatnot?
Oh, I've done isolation tanks. Yeah, no, I tell everybody to do one of these. 90 minutes. You go into Samadhi. You're like 45 minutes into it, and you go, wait, how long have I not been breathing for? Hold on a second.
I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff though. Like just doing yoga will produce melatonins in your brain. Like the more you do, like the more you do Kundalini yoga, the more visceral the reaction becomes to your mind. And
then
just,
you
like when I first.
You're creating this soma in your own body. That's
right. Yeah, I remember as a kid being like, "Haha, Wikipedia says that I'll get pseudo." Like when I first started doing Kundalini yoga, I was like 15, and someone was like, "You're not allowed in my house." I'm like, "What the hell are you talking? You're not allowed in my house because you're doing Kundalini yoga. That's dangerous." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Now I actually called him one time. I was like, "You know what? You're right. You were right. I didn't realize. I'm driving one day in an electric car and I experienced pseudo death on the highway, and all of a sudden I see everything like inside of the eyes of." It was a lot at once. And then I'm back again. And I'm like, thank God I'm alive. And I'm like, you got to be careful with yoga. That's the thing that can happen literally just from yoga,
Experience. So like, holy shit.
You can literally have a excretion of DMT because you have so much stored up. And if you're not practicing proper sadhana and grounding and release, let him tell it.
So there's a guy in India named Pilot Baba. Okay, so he's part of like Kumbh Mela that happens every 8 years, something like this. They do major Kumbh Mela or minor, and so it's where the Brahmaputra and the Ganges meet together and they create Saraswati, the river to God or whatever. And there's so many of these amazing like spiritual events that happen there. And one of them is this guy, Pilot Bubba. And so Pilot Bubba was an Air Force pilot for the Indian Air Force. And he got into a dogfight with call sign Peanuts. It's funny, this guy, his name comes up everywhere. But Peanuts took him out in a dogfight, and he got into a flat spin like you see in Top Gun, and he was going out of his brain, and he lost consciousness. And in losing consciousness, he regained consciousness and was able to recorrect his aircraft and land it. He was totally unconscious, like totally, but had consciousness. So he realized that even though I can't breathe in my own aircraft, I have the ability to have consciousness. so he started getting to what they call Samadhi breathing. And so they would bury him underground for like a day or 2 days. I'm serious. They would put him, they'd put a mirror under his face, and he'd breathe out for minutes on end, and then he would stop breathing for like 10, 15, 20 minutes. There was no condensation on the mirror. And they realized, okay, he's in Samadhi. And they would put him in the ground, completely bury him, no tubes, anything going into the pit. And 2 days later, they would bring him back up. And they would put the mirror under his face, and it would take like 30, 40 minutes for him to come back to consciousness. And all of a sudden, you start seeing the condensation on the mirror. And it's like, what has this guy just done? You know, he's gone through Samadhi technique. And this is very rare. It's hard for people to do this because you're breathing without breathing. You're going into, I just did a water fast for 3 days and then a massive liver cleanse. And doing a water fast was like crazy because after day one, you're like getting hilarious and you're like, I don't know if I could do this. And you're consciously, you know, totally disseminating and decreating your ability to do it. And then day two, you're like, oh, wow, I have all this energy. And all of a sudden, I'm creating new things in my business and new things in my environment. Why? Well, I'm not spending all this energy digesting. I'm now spending it creating. And it was mind-blowing. And then day four, I did a liver cleanse. And man, the pea-sized and, you know, the liver and gallbladder stones that come out of your system, mind-blowing. I suggest everybody.
Just from doing a water fast?
I did 3-day water fast, and then I did a liver cleanse.
Wait, so how do you do a liver cleanse?
Whew, all right. Well,
okay, if it's too much, you don't have to get into it.
Andreas Moritz has an excellent liver cleanse recipe. Andreas Moritz, Moritz.
Thank you. Correct.
Gotcha. I'll look into it right now.
So basically, you fast for a day before. I did a 3-day fast. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 2 p.m, you drank 8 ounces. I did a little bit more. I did like probably 12 ounces of water and a tablespoon of Epsom salts. Yeah. So you get the good Epsom salts that you can actually digest. There are some that you can find that don't have flavors or whatever. You can digest them. They act as a laxative. So 2 p.m, 5 p.m, you do another one, 8 ounces or 12 ounces, whatever, another tablespoon of Epsom salts. 8 p.m, same thing. So it's like every 3 hours. Be around a toilet because you're going to be shitting water out of yourself. Pardon my French. Anyway, family-friendly show. Sorry, you're going to have some issues. And then at 10 p.m, you do 6 ounces of lemon juice. So it's about 4 lemons you're squeezing into a glass. Mixed with 4 ounces of the most amazing olive oil you can find. There's good olive oil out there. Mix it, stir it up like crazy whirlwind, down it, get horizontal. When you wake up like 5, 6 in the morning, you do another 8 ounces of water and Epsom salts. 2 hours later, same thing. 2 hours later, same thing. And then 2 hours after that, you can eat. But man, you're going to flush the craziest stuff out of your body you've ever imagined. So, yeah.
So the thing about the breathing stuff that you mentioned earlier.
There was a lot of breath work. I
wanted to mention because it reminded me. So me and Andreas were talking about like how, certain animals, even in their sleep, like sharks, could still.
Oh, sharks! How do sharks exist, man? Sharks are the weirdest.
Right.
Fish.
But like I had a very similar experience about this whole being conscious while
always awake. Yeah, anyway.
Same with dolphins, and that's what dolphins technically are like catnapping a little bit. But this is crazy. The bicameral mind. Ugh.
Right, dude. And like I want to mention,
can't you subdue a shark by just putting it on its back and it just completely?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Also, if you punch a shark in the nose as a lifeguard, let me tell you, it works. Sorry.
I've seen videos of scuba divers flip a shark upside. But anyways,
punch him in the nose.
Go on.
So I had a very similar experience of being, conscious while being unconscious, right? So like, especially, so I've been to the military. I've been through the military myself, So the last, the basic graduation ceremony, you're supposed to like march a few laps around the parade field and then salute to whatever the people up on top. But during that lap, 2 laps, I fell asleep because I was so sleep deprived. I fell asleep while marching, and I was still in formation. And like, and maybe 2 laps, I woke up and like,
Autopilot.
yeah, I'm doing exactly what I was doing earlier. I was like, holy shit. And yeah, very similar phenomena like that I've experienced throughout my life. Especially also like when I was at my first duty station. I was working on like just working aircraft, doing my thing, and then like eventually I was turning a wrench, then I fell asleep, and then I woke up, the job's done. The stuff like that.
You're gonna end up with Total Recall on Mars, the same as BurnEye. You better suppress it.
I was wondering if that had to, if that's a similar effect or what's up.
Interesting.
Right? And it's like, do you live another life in your dreams or within that time space? It's strange.
Dream space is as real as live space. I mean,
I've seen future versions of myself, like in the past, that of like years ahead of like the way, and my hair was exactly the same and everything. We're like just jumping through time and space, and seeing those things. It makes you think like, where are we at? How is that possible?
But yeah, what's that breathing thing you said? It was like Shakti or no, sorry,
Samadhi.
Samadhi.
David Blaine-tology.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
remember the videos?
There's there's a lot of people that speak a deep meditation that it takes them to, like, it activates more of their cerebral spinal fluid and it takes you to deeper states of meditation. But for me, I would go to these conferences and people do these these workshops where it's like deep breathing exercises and their eyes are closed. And I was always like, I can't do it because all of my profound results are when my eyes are open and my breathing goes so shallow. It's like I'm not breathing. So that's what I was laughing about with Hans before. I'm like, yeah, he's like, that's the Samadhi state. I'm like, here I thought I was doing something wrong when it was actually probably something, profound and good. So it's different, but they say that the deep breathing really helps and unlocks things, especially for males.
I just remember like the videotapes. It's like, and now Samadhi with David Blaine. That was a good time to grow up.
But yeah, no, the reason why I mentioned the story that I just said was just like, I wonder like if like I don't do any breathing practices or whatnot, but I'm just wondering if I unintentionally entered a somatic state or something.
Quite possibly, yeah. No.
Right.
I think you can also. I didn't know anything about this. I would go into shadow breathing when I'd be in the sauna, and so I would breathe out and then inhale without inhaling, and so you breathe your stomach and everything up into your lung cavity. It's like reverse breathing, and I never realized, oh, maybe this is a form of samadhi. And somebody's like, oh my God, what are you? You're doing shadow breathing. I'm like, yeah, I'd never really thought about it like that. But
and you're getting into like tantric practices.
Yeah, you exhale everything, and then even though you've exhaled all your lung capacity, you breathe in without breathing in. You're sucking everything still up into you, and it's amazing. But it's like shadow breathing. And then I was watching. There's an amazing documentary. Everybody should watch it. It's called "Shortcut to Nirvana." And Pilot Bubba's, I've met him, but he's featured in it, and he's one of the guys that there's a woman from Korea and then him, and he's all about doing samadhi. He, like I said, he was taken out mid-flight in a dogfight and made his way out of it without breathing.
Well, Mauro Zapatera says that like cerebral spinal fluid is constantly transmitting like vibration and light, and that the energetic fluid that it creates then reaches like every major center of the brain and the entire central nervous system like instantly, like instantaneously and non-synaptically, meaning like, so it creates these spontaneous states of being, these states of consciousness that arrives not through mental thoughts, but through the wisdom of a light that is conducted by water. And this explains why intuition and meditative states are non-thought based and non-synaptic and sometimes precognitive, and that they arise as a sense of like instantaneously not as thoughts, but like as a knowing, just as like the antennas of the CSF water that transmit the energy like through the entire nervous system. And, you know, and it makes that long journey up the superhighway of your spinal column in the third ventricle of the brain, at the center of the brain, just in front of the pineal, like your pineal gland. And that it's in the back of the pituitary and in the pineal, and they're always bathed in this cerebral spinal fluid. And these are the master glands of the endocrine system and associated with the 6th and 7th chakra and the higher, you know, for your preconception, your perceptions of reality and everything. And the third ventricle was referred like by the Taoists as the crystal palace, and by the yogis as the cave of Brahman and the spiritual teacher. And so those coming together is like, and that's what that one guy said, Maharaj, like where the fluids come together, the I am appears. So it's like,
what are your thoughts about dream and dream technology on that? Because that sounds like it's coming straight out of dream tech.
Yeah, that's just
interesting.
That scares me. But I'm sorry to cut it off. We're just over 2 hours in, and it is 1:30 a.m. where I am, and I have to go pick up the girlfriend. She just finished work.
Oh, man.
I don't want her being stranded at 2 in the morning when it's minus 12 degrees Celsius outside up in Canada. That's why
already. Shoot.
Oh, man, I would love to like continue talking about this after stream. But Andreas, you're
muted, brother.
I'm pantomiming. No, Hans. Maybe at some point we could set something up to do a sequel. It'd be great to talk even deeper about some of these things. I'm gonna need to read your latest book, but beforehand, because I'm gonna have specific questions.
Go to megamyst megamyst.com as it says in my thing.
Megamyst.com. Everybody else, take the hint. Go to megamyst.com, buy a couple copies of his book, give a couple to your friends. Do the mission.
I've already been posting it in the live chat.
Just go to random doors and be like, "Hi, have you heard of Hans Dietrich?" And just hand it out.
Well, thank you for the Anyway, same with Julia. We're getting her books out here soon, I hope.
Epic. Yeah, this is key, guys. Right? So make sure you go to Mega Mist. Check out. He's got other videos. He's got deep conversations on all. Obviously, we just like asked him any which direction of questions, and he had amazing, important, and revelatory information on all of those subjects. You passed with flying colors. So I'm sure I can only imagine like the more questions that you could ask, the more rabbit holes it'll take you down to check out.
I'd love to talk about these things. I've spent oodles and hours and many.
Dude, I wish I could quantify an oodle. That'd be so cool.
Noodle. What the hell's a noodle? It's not a noodle, but it's
metric oodles. Well, all right. And also make sure that you check out Julia Common. She's got juliacommon.com, which is if you can. So if Bernie, you want to try to pull up the link, Julia's website is a great resource if you're trying to look into independent.
I have Julia's YouTube up right now.
I'll take it. I'll take it. That's okay.
Awesome score. Yeah.
You can from the YouTube after you've subscried. Click on the link.
If you want to do a hypnosis regression, I can do that.
Thank you, Andre.
Oh yes, I would love to. My God, I've been looking. I was actually about to pay somebody to do that. Like there's like
you still are. Go get Julia. She's the one to do it.
Hell yeah, now I need to do this as well.
Yeah. No, if you want the right person, Julia is great. She's going to help you in a holistic way because it's about making sure you're in a healthy place to do this too.
Right. So I was afraid that like these regression clinics on the.
No, I just think I go into like deep theta brainwaves. Like that's my realm is the theta brainwaves, and you want somebody that can take you to the theta. I do. That's my realm.
And I am Andreas.
Score. Here you are. All right. Yeah.
Visit the Exertus. Subscribe to me. I appreciate it when you do. Enjoy the videos. If you do enjoy the videos, like, comment, subscribe, and request some hit singles from Hans Dietrich. I think that's what we'll do. We'll make some shorts because Bernie's been making shorts. So a lot of you going to see some of these pieces. Appreciate the work you're doing, Bernie.
Exactly. And thank you, Hans and Julia and Ganwu and Zertis. And we will be back and do it all over again. At the latest next week for round 4. This was round 3 with Hans 3 Wednesdays in a row. Why not round 4?
Actually, it is weird.
Right?
So, the quaternity.
Appreciate
it. Thank you so much. And thank you all. And Love you.
I love you guys.
Woo to the woo, and thank you, Julia, and everybody else.
Au revoir.
Cheers.
Much-